Hello, I'm very excited to make this 5 things that growing up atheist, I did not know about the church, finding a church, religion in general, etc. So, number 1, my hair is still drying, don't worry about that. Number 1, all churches are different. All religions are different. I think so much of what I was taught as an atheist growing up is this idea that religion is a monolith, which is not what I found. Yes, as someone who has found my way to specifically the Catholic Church, this is a painting I did today of a cross. So cute. Watercolor. As someone who's found my way to specifically the Catholic faith and the church that supposedly Jesus founded, which I feel to be true from a historical perspective, what I have learned very quickly is that not only is every single denomination different, first of all, every religion is different. So you can, if you're someone who also was raised atheist, just know you can find anything that you're looking for in terms of faith, in terms of morality, in terms of rules and regulations, or any of the things that religion can bring you, a closer relationship with God, in a religion of your choosing, right? If you want a certain kind of religion that's more devout, no drinking, prays 5 times a day, look at Islam, right? If you want a religion that doesn't talk about Jesus in the same way, but does prioritize God, that's Judaism. If you want something that is less of a religion, but allows you real deep reverence for the righteous path, living well, and ultimately finding your inner sense of the universe, maybe look at Buddhism. And remember, there's so many different kinds of Buddhism. If you want a religion that allows you to worship, not allows you, but encourages you to get to know multiple God figures, look at a religion like Hinduism. There are so many different ways to practice religion that I think being raised atheist, at least for me, and I know probably for a lot of other people who went through this, we just aren't taught that. We're just taught, at least I was taught, it's one random monolith and it's just, they believe all this stuff. It's like, no. Then, beyond all the religions are different, all of the denominations, let's go further into what I believe at this point in my life, into Christianity. All the different Christian religions are, denominations are so different, okay? Then you can go even further and say every church is different. Every single parish is different. Every church community is different. One of the biggest, most interesting challenges I found in my experience of seeking out religion is trying to find a church that is in alignment with what I, reading the Bible, have found to be the teachings of Jesus Christ. So I was going to a church previously that kind of kicks people out that are in need and doesn't donate that much. That was not in alignment with what I see as the purpose of following Jesus or religion or whatever, right? So figuring that out, you can find any type of community. It's so diverse, especially if you're in a city. There's so many ways to connect with God. There are so many ways to find faith-based community. So that's number 1. Religion is not a monolith. There are so many ways to worship. There are so many different styles of communities, so many different approaches, and ultimately such a different energy, purpose, and outcome depending on what church you attend. Okay, second of all, something that I was raised to believe as an atheist is that having strict morals or harsh rules based on religion is intrinsically wrong or is intrinsically limiting. As an adult, that is not what I have found to be true, okay? So growing up, it was basically implied and sometimes explained to me by my many very atheist family members and extended family and grandparents and everybody, that the dogma of religion can be or is suppressing, repressing, harsh, judgmental, right? Now, these are things that absolutely can be true. As an adult, however, I have found the benefits of believing in a very linear kind of strict way of living that comes along with religion, or the way that I practice my faith, actually feels more freeing rather than more restricting. So growing up atheist, I was taught the way that religious people think is restrictive. It's punishing. And again, that can absolutely be true. But as an adult finding faith for myself, I have not found that to be how it ultimately feels. To me, it feels more freeing, more liberating, and more like comforting than anything else. So as I adhere to all these different kind of tenets of my understanding of faith and like changing my lifestyle to match what I'm understanding and learning about religion, specifically the Catholic faith, which is what I've kind of found my way to, which is what actually one of my great grandmothers was Catholic. So, you know, I've had religious people in my family, and that was one of them. And she was very devout, which is cool to me now. And yeah, so as I'm along this path, it's actually satisfying to have the experience of rules, regulations, and tenets of behavior and codes of conduct, rather than the suppressing nature that was kind of basically described to me by a very liberal environment, I'm still a liberal, but like a very hippie environment, and a very, very, very secular environment. Okay, so one, religion is not a monolith. 2, the rules and regulations don't have to feel restrictive and actually can feel liberating depending on context. 3, oh my God, sorry, it's a noisy hallway. 3, prayer, like, I almost was given this idea that prayer is nerdy or is repetitive or is like boring. My experience of prayer has not been that at all. As an adult who found my way to faith, having the experience of prayer, whether I'm praying the rosary or whether I'm actually just communicating with God, praying, whether I'm praying in a church service during mass or on my own time, it is so helpful and healing and poignant, and like grounding is another word I've heard someone use to describe. There's another cross that I drew, and no, I think that's ink. That's like a drawing that I did. Anyway, so yeah, prayer is not this like boring, weird, nerdy, like repetitive action. And I think being raised atheist, that was the impression that we were given. That was the implication, was like, it's just a thing people do, whatever. As an adult who's found faith, it very much feels like this is a emotional, spiritual, of course, but also like mental tool. Like this is a real asset to my daily life to know how to pray, to be able to pray, to be willing to pray, and to develop a pattern, like a routine of prayer. That's another thing. I'm just going to add that as a 4th point. I didn't write these out beforehand, clearly, but the 4th point kind of ties into that, the 3rd point of prayer. But 4 is like the routine of religion is monotonous. This is the mythology I was taught growing up atheist. The routine of religion is monotonous, or the routine of religion is less intellectual, or is less basically that it's reductive, or that it's simplistic in a way. Now, as an adult who's found my way to religion, that is absolutely not what I found. Obviously, check back in with me in 20 years, see how it's going. But I think there was this undertone when the topic of religion, or even Christianity specifically, but even religion in general, would come up with people around me growing up that were atheist, including family, but not even limited to that, like peers at school, whatever, adults in my life, that religion was somehow like not as intellectual, or not, that it was simplistic, or that it was minimizing reality. That being an atheist somehow meant you saw more of reality, and that you were more kind of aware of what was going on in the world. I simply have not found that to be true at all. A really clear example of this is the activism and advocacy of the current Pope. Pope Leo has sent the literal brand new Pope who just started guiding the Roman Catholic Church, has sent aid to Gaza. Like, he literally sent vaccines to the Palestinian people. He has spoken up about so many humanitarian issues. He has gone way out of his way to advocate for people being tormented and tortured by the absolutely evil, racist situation of ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, whatever, that is basically apartheid in the United States. Like, it's such an evil thing to be ripping apart families for no reason other than quote unquote citizenship, which is such an excuse, like such a bad reason. And the Pope has literally spoken up and said Jesus would never disrespect and harm and be violent towards thy neighbor of someone coming from the same continent. It's, and so that level of advocacy and activism, I think, really speaks to, and it's not just him, it's so many religious people I've had the honor to meet that do care about human beings, that do care about this planet, that care about those around them and, socio-political stuff going on and much more. And so for me to see, and also when I look around and I'm seeing mostly the people donating meals, shelter, clothing, resources, and assistance to homeless people, other than the government, but even sometimes more than the government, are churches. They are faith-based groups. There's a really wonderful, it's not my denomination, but there's a great Methodist church that I sometimes go to in San Francisco that gives out 3 meals a day to homeless people. Like, that to me is not a narrow worldview. That is a very clearly humanitarian worldview. And ultimately, as I read the Bible, that's what I see as the teachings of Jesus. So it makes sense. But as for the anti-intellectualism of it, I think that for me, as I grew up, even before finding religion, I really was noticing that my creativity, my intelligence, my intellectual abilities were always most supported within creative boundaries rather than when it was all up in the air. You could do whatever, say whatever, think whatever, no limits, no structure. To me, that actually doesn't feel supportive of intellectualism or seeing all the components of what life is made up of. To me, as an adult now, having kind of seen that develop as I was growing up of like, wait a second, I like creative boundaries to think better. But now, having found Christianity, it's like, oh, this is actually just a really sacred, holy, wholesome framework within which to be intellectual, within which to be creative. My paintings don't all have to have a cross on them. My book isn't all about Jesus. Not all of the music I've been making, you know what I mean? My friendships aren't all about that. All the jobs I've had are not all about that. All the ways I've lived my life in different times have not all been centered around that. That doesn't mean I can't center my soul around God, around, following Jesus. So I think finding that beautiful distinction and nuance where it doesn't have to be this anti-intellectual thing, although Christianity and religion in general has been used and abused as an excuse to remove intellectualism. Absolutely. I think that a lot of how Christianity spread was extremely unjust, violent, and evil. And actually not in alignment with the teachings, ironically, that they were trying to spread, because it was without consent and it was so against, the human desire to create and think. So it's very complicated. It's very nuanced. But again, ultimately, my ability to be creative and to be a thinker, to be an intellectual, to have deep conversations, to see the world as it is, to see the problems happening in the world, to see the humanitarian real issues happening in the world, and the activism that has to happen to remedy that stuff that's occurring, is supported by a religious framework. It actually supports it rather than intrinsically hinders it, which was the myth I was taught growing up atheist. Okay, 5. Oh, I know. The 5th one. This is a really good one. I think there was an underlying implication that happens among atheists. And when you're growing up atheist, when you're raised atheist, and when you're around people that really hold strongly to atheist worldview and to non-religious secular worldview, is this idea that everyone's atheist unless you hear otherwise. That's not true. There are so many more religious people than I was aware of growing up. So basically, this is kind of like any confirmation bias. Like, I'm sure this also happens for religious people growing up, where like they assume everyone's religious unless they hear otherwise and like don't know about atheists. But as an atheist, that also happened to me, where I was like, no one believes in God. This is rare, right? And then now looking back, I can be like, oh, that person was Christian, or that person was Muslim. And like, there's all like, that person was practicing and Jewish. Like, they were actually going to temple. They were actually praying to God. And I didn't know at the time. Or that person was Hindu and I didn't know, because I was coming from this atheist worldview where I literally couldn't see the religion around me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like there's an assumption that it's so logical to be atheist, of course, which, like, whatever, you're allowed to be atheist, but like there's this undertone that I experienced growing up around atheism that's like, it's obviously best, it's obviously more logical, more intellectual, more liberal, which I don't even think it's always more liberal, by the way, that intrinsically implies that everybody else is also atheist. Again, not true. Like, even thinking about celebrities, like growing up my whole life, I kind of just assumed, like, especially when I was really young, like as a kid or like as an adolescent, I kind of just assumed all celebrities were like atheists, you know? And now I know that's not true. I know a lot of them are actually religious. Now, I'm not saying all of them are. Some of them are definitely atheists, which is also great in its own way. Everyone, that is the beauty, whether you're religious, whether you're atheist, whether you're agnostic, whether you practice a spiritual way of life, but you're not religious, or whether you practice, you know, different forms of meditation without any sense of God or with sense of whatever you do. Ultimately, the beauty of all of it is that we really, truly have free will. And I think learning that growing up atheist, my sense of the world wasn't a comprehensive picture. Of course, it's still not a comprehensive picture. It will never be a comprehensive picture. Part of free will is that we can never know most of anything. That's just being human. But choosing to exercise my free will to find my way to religion, to find my way to Christ and to faith, and specifically to the Catholic Church, which I really am so thankful to find. I love the saints. I love praying the rosary. I'm so thankful that there's good leadership in the Catholic Church right now. I have definitely changed churches, right? Like, I haven't gone consistently to one place. I'm still finding my home with it. Like, it's a journey. And also, I totally, again, come ask me in 20 years, right? Like, who knows? I don't claim to predict the future. But I know for now, and hopefully forever, my home is in this beautiful religious legacy of Christ and of these teachings. And that has given me just so much peace and relief. Obviously, there are so many other things in my life that are giving me immense peace and relief as someone who has severe mental illness, as someone who has been through hell and back, truly. Like, I had brain damage from psychosis. I was homeless briefly, but way too long for me. Like, I was in physically abusive relationships, you know, like the list goes on, like the things I went through before ever even conceiving of the idea of finding religion, but definitely for most of my adult life, just like the torture of it, especially with severe psychotic mental illness. Yes, there's other things and other changes in my life, thankfully, that, I mean, even wearing my glasses more helps, right? Like little things that I'm trying to do more and more. But one of those changes absolutely is finding my path to worshiping God, and also my path to prayer, my path to finding community in the church, praying the rosary, praying in general, and allowing myself, and this is the crux of the video, allowing myself to be non-judgmental in how I approach my journey in faith, right? So much of growing up atheist was kind of this like judgmental undertone against religion. Obviously, I'm very grateful for many things in my life growing up. I'm very resentful for many things in my life growing up too. Being atheist, a little bit of both, or growing up atheist. That being said, exercising my free will, allowing myself non-judgment in this pathway, and really, really becoming more open-minded to the benefits of religion, to the benefits of finding a real way to praise God. And additionally, I think it's so appealing to me to have less stress, to have lower screen time, like all these other random benefits that really, really have found their way into my life through a faith community and through seeking out this change, are also very welcome benefits. So, of course, like even when I was first deciding if I wanted to actually start the process of converting and being baptized, I literally grew up that atheist. I was never baptized, and I'm in the process right now of all this. But as I was making that decision, like, do I even want to go and start this process? One of the things I did was I literally Googled, do people who are religious live longer? Are they happier? Do they have better lives? And do they have less illness? Just all these basic statistics. And a lot of religions bring greater life satisfaction even on earth, before heaven or whatever. There's so many real benefits that we can see tangibly. And again, that's not even everyone's path. Some people find religion and it's chaotic. For me, it's been peaceful. So thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. And if you also grew up atheist, please let me know what resonates if you relate to this. Or maybe if you're still kind of going through this experience, let me know what was helpful specifically. So I will continue to make random videos like this about my life and things I've learned along the way. And I'm wishing you a blessed day, a beautiful day, and so much love and healthiness along your journey.